on to introduce our second witness, Bryce Yonker. Mr. Yonker is the Executive Director and the CEO for Grid Forward. Grid Forward maintains over 100 members from utilities, technology providers, national labs, investors, nonprofits, universities, and other advanced grid stakeholders. Welcome, Mr. Yonker, and you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Sinema, Ranking Member Langford, Ranking Member Portman, members of the subcommittee for the opportunity. My name is Bryce Yonker, and I'm Executive Director and CEO of Grid Forward, as you said, an industry organization working to accelerate grid modernization and innovation. The electric grid is considered the most important engineering achievement of the 20th century. It's the backbone by which we build and sustain our lives, communities, business, and indeed society. However, we are not investing in the grid nearly enough to meet the demands we place on it. The Association for Civil Engineers predicts that in less than 8 years, we will have underinvested in the grid by about $200 billion. Should we be surprised by the grid impacts that happened over the last 9 months from overwhelming events such as winter storms, unprecedented heat, wildfires, a pipeline cyber attack, and major storms that have already been discussed? NOAA reports that the U.S. has had 18 climate weather and related disasters so far this year, costing U.S. communities more than $1 billion in damages each, after record damages of $100 billion from 22 events last year. At the same time, market dynamics are changing faster than ever before. Customers are buying into energy options ranging from smart thermostats to electric vehicles. Economics and policy drivers are accelerating the energy transition to resources like wind, solar, and batteries rapidly. In the midst of this change, operators are trying to make do with 20th century assets that in many instances are past their useful lives. For the last decade, we have helped to promote and accelerate a toolbox of advanced grid applications that are ready to be implemented at scale. I will summarize my remarks in 4 classes of capabilities: forecasting, monitoring, planning, and deployment. First, advanced forecasting. Simulation, advanced algorithms, supercomputers, and other technologies are helping us forecast future events depending on a variety of factors. For the electric grid, the industry is getting better at forecasting both supply and demand. Indeed, keeping customer demand and electricity supply dynamically in balance is the basic equation for reliable power. However, outlier events that have been considered statistically improbable are becoming more frequent. For example, the heat dome I experienced in Oregon this summer with temperatures in the 115-degree range right outside my door here beat our previous high temperatures by 8 degrees. With these events increasing in frequency and impact, we need more sophisticated, higher resolution forecasting to keep the grid in balance. Second, real-time monitoring. Advanced sensing capabilities allow grid operators to see in near real-time conditions of the grid that previously could only be determined through slow, manual, in-person inspection. Operators can track the health of assets of the grid, such as rotting or damaged poles, abnormal electric currents, trees in contact with lines, and much more. We must now move into advanced and automated controls of our electric grid systems so that real-time awareness leads to fast action for enhanced grid reliability. Third, strategic planning. Today's planning frontier needs to consider such a large number of factors that it must be approached as a living set of contingencies and adaptive strategies. Unfortunately, many, if not most, communities do not have adequate resiliency action plans, let alone installed grid flexibility solutions to adapt to circumstances they are already facing. Grid operators and communities need to support to develop broader strategic plans with actionable roadmaps to meet tomorrow's challenges. Fourth and finally, grid enhancing deployment. Investing in advanced grid deployments is the foundation of making community resilience a reality. We have recently prepared a briefing that illustrates the benefit from advanced grid deployments ranging from smart grid investments that have brought over $2 billion of added impacts in one wider community to single grid hardening projects that have decreased outages by 10% or more. I'd like to briefly highlight a couple of quick examples as I know my time is running low. Last week, the CEO of PG&E in California talked about how advanced grid capabilities allowed them to pinpoint high-risk areas that could have prevented 96% of the structures that were damaged or lost from previous wildfires. The DOE's own smart grid investment grants from 2009 to 2013 directly brought nearly $8 billion of resources to advanced grid capabilities. Many utilities accelerated their grid modernization plans by as much as a decade. One utility in your home state, Chair Sinema, is working with 2 military facilities to deploy hardened grid infrastructure, including microgrids, that will significantly increase the reliability of their operations. In a neighboring state to yours, Ranking Member Langford, smart grid deployments helped lower outage time from one recent storm by an estimated 45 million outage minutes. And my utility here in Oregon is leveraging a portfolio of demand-side, distributed assets, and market resources alongside grid modernization capabilities to help meet the needs like on that 115-degree day this summer where neither I nor very many customers were out of power. In summary, our electric grid is becoming more complex, and so are its challenges. Resilience is no longer a matter of just energy supply. Instead, we must consider the capabilities of all grid-connected resources and look beyond physical capacity. Central to harnessing these interconnected resources is access to and participation in wide markets that enable coordination and maximize their value, a topic I know we're going to talk about today. However, technology, markets, and policy or any factors alone will not solve this issue. We believe the bipartisan infrastructure package passed earlier this year through the Senate and the Energy Act of 2020 together provide an urgently needed down payment to advance much needed grid resiliency capabilities. It's critical that federal resources align with local realities to ensure that our grid can remain safe, reliable, and affordable. We must also prioritize and ensure that our grid is increasingly flexible, efficient, clean, equitable, secure, and as we were talking about today, resilient. Thank you for the time, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yonker.